Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. My name is Abdel Jacobo. I'm the academic specialist for the University of Dayton Publishing in Grupo SM in Mexico, and I'm in charge of providing academic services to the nets of schools we work with. And it is a pleasure and honor for us to be presenting a series of webinars for your professional development. And it's been about almost 4 weeks, I guess, that we are providing workshops, training, and sharing with you interesting topics. First of all, I want to thank to all of you who are out there. We have built a community, an ELT community of teachers, English teachers and teachers from all over the world, Latin America, United States, Spain. We really, really appreciate your time and your support. And well, saying that, today we have a very interesting topic. Remember that yesterday I told you that today is going to be, uh, let's say, not the conclusion, but a key point. Is a key point on the journey we have been through since last Monday, in which we presented online assessment, and then we work with competences in order to become a more a technological teacher. And today we're going to have something very important, which is how to plan online classes, because most of us are teaching online right now, and there are a lot of questions and comments from all of you who are interested in learning on how to plan online classes. So that's why we invited one of our experts on technology and education, Abraham Ruiz. He's going to be the speaker today. I'm going to be the moderator. And let me introduce Abraham so we can all have an idea who he is. Okay, so Abraham is a teacher with more than 10 years of experience. He has worked as a language consultant for the British Council, Certeca, Dayton University Publishing, and Grupo SM. Abraham is also working as Secretario de Educación Pública en México, en el estado de Jalisco, as an English teacher in a public secondary. He holds a BA in Financial Management and a BA in Teaching English as a Foreign Language. And currently, he's studying a master's degree in Learning Technologies at the University of Guadalajara. So he's an expert on today's topic. So thank you, Abraham, for your time, for your knowledge, for your support. So, well, saying that, the audience is all yours.
Thank you, Abdel, and thank you everyone for being here. So let's start, okay? So the idea, like Abdel says, it's to continue on the process of mm, all the technological parts that we faced, uh, in which you have to think about it, right? I mean, nowadays, especially nowadays that we have facing this pandemic, that we have to deal with online classes. So it's difficult, I know. I mean, for some of us, it's not so difficult. I mean, for example, in the secondary that I work for, um, we're like just a few teachers who know how to deal with technology. So the idea is to help. For example, nowadays I'm helping my other colleagues in order to work on online classes, right? I mean, how to obtain resources, how to lesson plan, what elements do you have to consider, and many more. Obviously, if you would like to have this webinar in Spanish, we can do it also, right? So let's begin, right? Okay, hold on. Check. I'm sorry. Okay. So today we're going to work about planning online classes, right? So let's begin. So let me begin with this quote. So the idea of education says it's not the answer to questions to answer all the questions, but education is the means to answer all questions. So this one is from William Malin. So I like it because I don't know you professors, but we tend to have like trying to think that education answer everything, right? And it is not. I mean, the more you learn, the more doubts you are going to have. Okay, so like Adele said yesterday at the end of the presentation is like these topics. I mean, normally you have to study like a semester or a year, right? For example, in my master's, I mean, I spent 6 months studying about lesson planning, about the resources. So it's not an easy topic, like to cover everything in 90 minutes, but we're going to do our best. So let's continue. So the goal of the session is at the end of the presentation, you as a participants will have a clear idea of the elements of the lesson plan in an online environment by reviewing the elements, methodologies, approaches, sources, and resources that are important while we lesson planning. Okay, so let's continue. In a, in a moment, where I'm going to answer some of your questions, so don't worry about it. Okay, so today's topics are first we're going to work on recommendations before we start working online. About planification, about the differences between face-to-face plan, lesson plan, and online lesson plan, right? The elements of the lesson plan that we're going to work, resources, sources, we're going to work about SMART goals. Finally, we're going to end up with approaches and platforms, apps, and more information that it's going to be really interesting for you, right? Okay, so let me begin. So before we start, before we start with this topic, let me check how many we are now. Oh, 456. Great. Okay, so let me share this. Let me check. Hold on. Okay, so um, I don't know, Abdel, can you help me to check if everyone can see this screen? Sorry.
We are seeing a slide and it says today's topics.
Okay, so let me check. What about now? Can you see my screen? Can you see this one?
Do you want to share your Mentimeter?
Yes.
No, we're seeing the same slide. Maybe you want to stop sharing and then you share again.
Okay.
Just directly the Google Chrome
Yes.
window.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so just to warm up with the idea of the lesson planning, I have this tool which is really interesting with your students. You can use it. So the name is Mentimeter. So please, can you help me, teachers? So go directly to this website. I would like you to have your cell phones with you and go to www.menti.com. Okay. As soon as you get into, says join to a survey. So click on the first answer on Google and please write the code 99 20, 21 95. I repeat 99 21 95. And I will wait for a couple of minutes so you can get into, because I have no participants at the moment. So don't be shy, okay? So I will see only your answers, but I cannot see your who's writing what, okay? So
Meantime, they are connecting around. Can you repeat the instructions again? What do they have to do?
yes, as soon as you you have to go to www.menti.com and use that code that says 992195, and you have one question, says in one word. So one word to describe lesson planning for you, okay? Please try to be honest, okay? Because I need to see your answers. Great. I don't know if you can see it. A flexible format, organization, exhausting, yes. Happens. Strategies, orders, stress, GPS, create, creative, precise, preparation, guide, hard. Great. Great. We have 25 teachers right now. Okay, thank you. Continue. Format exam, very good. Rediscovering, essential, rediscovering hard, um, stressful. Some of you say structure again, a flexible format, organization again, very good. Challenging, yes. Great, excellent. Don't be shy, please. Come on. I want to see your comments. And it's a really nice way to interact, especially if you have access to internet and personal devices with you in your classroom. You can use this one, menti.com, and you can ask your students about. It's similar like a Kahoot, but it's in a different way. I mean, you can have like word clouds, or you can have another challenges. Grades, bureaucracy, yeah, a little bit, yes. And let me check background knowledge, yes, amazing. Strategies, dividing, whoa, 115, great. Stress, okay. You see, organization is the most common word that everyone's is saying. Long, dividing, necessary preparation. Okay, now we're gonna continue. So I have another question for you, okay? Very good, 133, great. Background knowledge, yes. Exhausting, overwhelming, yes, it could be in a way. Okay. Path, yes. Help, distribution. Okay, let's go to the next question, okay? So it's this one says, I do lesson plan because, and please, in one word, passion, yes. Great. I love that one. Okay, another one, don't be shy. Tool, yes. It's a really strong tool. Flexible, meaningful, passion, guide, to be organized. Remember, the question is, I do lesson plan because, so why do you do it? Prepare my class, efficient, clarification, meaningful, flexible, guide. Very good. Excellent. Continue. Yes, I have to, okay. It is a guide for my class, yes. You see, organization. Very good. Excellent. You know, teachers, we're like working with lesson planning. No matter if you're talking about face-to-face or online classes, you will see that they are really highly connected. I mean, you see no difference at all, but we have like certain elements that they are really important. Okay, very good. Organized, necessary, is required, necessary. Quiero mejorar, very good. Keeps me organized. Efficient. You see, guide and organization and important are the most common answers. To teach, mandatory, okay. Yes, knowledge, to be organized, I have an idea. Reality, success, very good. Is required, necessary, yes. To have precise ideas, wow, 135 teachers coming right now, excellent. I love to teach, very good. I love to organize, to be organized, very good, excellent teachers. So you see, the idea of lesson plan, we have to think about beyond the, like some of you said, beyond the bureaucracy, okay? You have to see, like one of my coordinators who is helping me a lot, he says, your lesson plan is your strategy, right? It's like going to war. So you have to prepare all of your tools, your guns, all of your armory, everything. You have to be really prepared to go to the battle, right? So obviously we're not killing anyone, right? But the idea is like how to deal with something, okay? For example, a doctor, before he goes to surgery, okay, he has tests, he has his equipment, so, but he is not like preparing everything on paper, right? I mean, we're just like a few professions who deal with this one, right? We have to prepare everything, so we have to bear in mind all the aspects, all the elements that we have to. Very good. Guide obligation important. Excellent, excellent. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to take this one out. So hold on. Let me go to the presentation again. Okay. Very good. So 169 participants. Very good. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay. So hold on. I hope can you see. I'm sorry. Then can you just clarify if you can see my presentation?
Yes, the slide says today's topics.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to make sure. Okay, so let's continue about the lesson planning. I mean, this topic is really big, so I try to like take all the elements necessary, right? So we said that we're going to see these ones. So let's continue with recommendations. But before we go to recommendations, we have to think about these two topics. For some of you, maybe you know it. For some of you, it's like the first time that you know about these words. The first one is synchronous and asynchronous. So it says synchronous or asynchronous. So let's read about this. So synchronous learning is online or distance education that happens in real time. Okay, so this is like a face-to-face session. The only thing is that you're doing in a distance. Okay, for example, by a video conference with Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, any tool that you use. Okay, and whereas asynchronous learning occurs through online channels without real-time interaction. Okay, in this case, you just let the activities there on the cloud or on the internet, and your students go there and they work with. Okay, so but you are not there. Okay, there is no like physical contact in the moment. Obviously, with asynchronous, you can work with another tools, so you can have like that interaction. For example, you can record a video or record an audio, so where you explain the ideas or explain instructions, etc., or the goals, etc. Okay, so you can do that. I mean, it's okay, but it's not necessary at all. Okay. So let me go for the recommendations. And these ones are the recommendations that I collect from the teachers that work online as well as me. Okay, and also like recommendations from another teachers. Okay, so these recommendations is like first one is how to integrate students with their different levels. Okay, so you have to take this one into consideration, like how you have to integrate students with the different levels. When I'm saying different levels, I'm talking about when you're like teaching, in this case, the language, right? But if you're teaching mathematics or science or another subject, you have to take that in mind also, right? Like, so what happens if I have students that they are like really strong students and I have like weak students. Okay, so sometimes we have this kind of um, hold on. We have this kind of students that they have different levels, so we have to think about all the activities that we're going to work with them. Okay. Okay. I have some questions. Let me check. Can I use Mentimeter with kindergarten students? Yes, you can do it. But in this case, as they are like, they don't know how to write, I suggest you can use images, okay? So you can have like, how's my reaction? I don't know, like talking about physical appearance, vocabulary. Yes, you can do it. Remember, everything is about creativity. What about different learning styles? Yes, the idea is about working with different learning styles. And remember, with the online um, learning, is that you have to think about all of your students, but most of them. Okay, because, for example, if you're working like synchronous, like in this moment, yes, you can do something like a TPR, like total physical response. So the idea is like to be active. So I stand up and I dance and you have to jump. So you can do it, right? But with the asynchronous, it's kind of like not difficult, but it's going to be a little bit different. Okay. So also, there is no need to create the whole thing, okay? So when you're thinking about the working online, okay, forget about like designing the whole platform, all the materials, all the resources. Like, hold on. So the idea is like the third recommendation is like go step by step, okay? So go easy, right? So first I try to make the introduction, and then I set activities, and then I set the projects or the final projects, all the interactions that they're going to have between my students, etc., etc. Okay. The next one is it's okay to ask what your students need or want. Okay, so it's valid. I mean, you have to ask your students, like, what do you want to learn? I mean, what is your favorite singer, or what is your favorite band, or what video games do you play, right? So the idea is to have that information so you can have like that in that idea, like how can you connect those, right? For example, if you are like working on reading on the reading skill, instead of reading a normal reading about, like children's stories, and you see that you have some of your students, they love to play video games. So why don't you have like instructions about the video games, or why don't you bring like stories about their favorite movies, or like videos that they are related with them, right? So you have to like they have like a certain meaning with them, right? Um, the next one is says tailor your lessons according to your students' needs. Okay, so the idea is with lesson on online lessoning, online lesson planning. Sorry, you have to think about how to create the materials, but according to your students. And this online learning, it's really rich in the idea of having the opportunity to create all the materials for them. Okay. Build your resource slowly. Yes, again, like you have to build all your resources like one by one. And the good thing is that you can recycle all the materials that you're preparing. For example, sometimes like on face-to-face classes, we prepare wall charts, we prepare materials, and with the pass of the time, you see that all those materials, they get old, sometimes they get damaged. So with online materials, forget about it, right? The only problem that we have is like sometimes what is now update, maybe in a couple of months, it is not. For example, I use Apple products. So I used to have, well, no, I used to have, no, I still use some programs that they work with Flash Player. So nowadays, Flash Player and Mac, they don't work together. So now I have to work with my PC. Okay, so, and the last one, it's a recommendation, but for independent teachers, okay? This is not for a school, okay? So it says create a curriculum based on what your students need. And it will show you some of my classes that I have. So sometimes I prepare, sometimes I frequently prepare my classes according to my students' needs. For example, I have classes for business English, I have classes for people who's traveling to another country, I have classes for people whose intentions are going to live in another country where English is the official language. So the idea is I prepare my students with all the materials and I tailor everything according to their needs. Okay, so this quote I like it. I would like to this think about it. The first time I watched that movie,
Abraham, I'm sorry.
yes,
We
yes,
are not seeing your presentation. Can
oh,
you share again?
yes, sure. Hold on. Can you see it?
Yes.
Area. Sorry. Okay, so let me go back. So we have the recommendations, right? And the last one, remember, is to create a curriculum based on what your students need. So this one recommendation is only for independent teachers, okay? So you're freelance, you create your own classes. Okay, this one, like I was telling you, the first time that I watched that movie, this quote, it was like, boom, really shocks me because it really like get into me, right? I have that thought. So says, I try to believe in as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. So remember, teachers, I mean, when you're working online, it's not about thinking about the impossible thing, but maybe to think about creating new things, okay? So why don't I make this one for my students? What if they could, I mean, try, okay? My recommendation is never stop experimenting, okay? Never stop trying new things, okay? Okay, so let's begin. What is lesson planning? I mean, we all lesson plan. I'm not going to teach you about this one, but the idea is, according to the Singapore Management University, says a lesson plan is the instructor's roadmap of what students need to learn and how it will be done effectively during the class time. Okay, this one is about a normal lesson planning, but you will see that there is no difference, okay? So the idea is that you have like a roadmap, okay? So you're going to like create this road for your students with all the signs and all the information that they need in order to reach that goal, right? And in this case, they said if, during the class time, but in this case, you can set this one in a period of time, right? Because remember, when you're working online, you always have to set deadlines. And we're going to see that when we are going to see the platforms, okay? So now, when you're talking about lesson planning, according to the Singapore University, says we have three stages. So we have before the class, during the class, and after the class, okay? So before the class, we have to identify the learning objectives, plan the specific learning activities, assessment as a sequence of the lesson, right? So you have to think about all this sequence of the of your lessons, okay? All the activities, assessments, everything, okay? You have to create a realistic timeline, okay? So you have, for example, you have elementary kids, so you're not going to give them a lot of work, especially online. I know they love computers, I know they love smartphones, but now remember they're facing a new area, right? So instead of like seeing YouTube as a way of having fun and entertainment, now it's about education. So for them, it's going to be like you have to go like step by step, okay? And obviously, you have to plan for a lesson closure, okay? You have to end with that. How are you going to end the lesson? And if you want, how are you going to connect that lesson to the next lesson? Okay, because remember, we have to like um, connect with the background of your students. Okay, So now during the class, you have to share the lesson plan, says according to the university. I don't recommend you to share all the whole lesson plan. I really recommend like the main points that they're going to do, okay? And also the objectives. Your students have to know the objectives of your class, no matter if it's online or face-to-face. It says because you need to get your students engaged, right? And after the class, reflect on what worked well and why, and what you could have done differently. This one happens a lot. I mean, the first time that I was working online, believe me, it was a totally fail. Okay, so most of my students failed on the assessments, and they didn't finish on time. Well, I still struggle with that. But I mean, like when I started my online activities, especially with my public, in my public job, so I believe me, it was like 95% of my students didn't participate, but I didn't stop. So I was like continuing. And some of my colleagues says, "Why do you work so much?" Because I said, I mean, it's going to give me a lot of satisfaction because I see that language and technology they have to work together nowadays, especially because nowadays we're facing, for example, with jobs that they are not we didn't have like 20 years ago. I mean, who knew about community managers or Instagram marketing? I mean, who knew about that, right? But nowadays we have to face that our students are going to deal with jobs that in this moment are not right now. So you have to like prepare your students for that. Okay. So always try to reflect. Okay. So every activity, if it fails, don't worry, but try to check what happened and monitor everything. Right. Like what happened with my assessment? What happened with my quizzes? Why do everyone fail? So I create surveys for my students. So I have the information from them. Okay. And also, this is a very good recommendation. Start like asking for feedback, okay? Like, what happened? Did you enjoy the activities? Or maybe it was my instructions who were like not so clear because it happens a lot, okay? So let's continue. So we have differences, okay? We have a lot of differences, but these ones are like the most common that we face, okay? So in face-to-face classes, we have speaking and listening are the basic skills to interact and provide instructions. So you are there. So you are monitoring your students, you can explain again and you can explain again, and you can rely on the physical space, you can have realia, you can have wall charts, you can have many materials that online you don't have it unless you create them, right? So on the face-to-face, you can rely on the physical space. You can go outside, you can discover many things, and online you have to be very clear on what your students can or could do, okay? And online, on the differences, says there is limited space for improvisation, okay? While on the face-to-face, you can improvise. On the online, for example, in this moment, like we're working like face-to-face, obviously through uh, Microsoft Teams, you can improvise a little bit, right? But when you're like working asynchronous, when you let all the activities there and your students are working, it's kind of difficult to I mean, there is no space for improvisation in that. Okay, you can create materials more related to your students' needs. Yes, right? Because you can create, for example, your students. You see that you have a lot of girls that they love fashion or they love technology, so you can create materials for them, right? Also, you have in the differences as in online, the instructions need to be clear and simple. That's it. Like the less instructions, it's better for them. You can have discussions about different topics. This is really fantastic. I mean, when you work online, believe me, your students interact in a way that you cannot imagine. I mean, you can. for example, in my experience, I have students that they were working online. I mean, on face-to-face classes, they were really shy. They never participate, they never interact. But now they are in online classes. I mean, they interact, they like telling jokes, like taking pictures. I mean, they're really, really like different students. I mean, I was like, wow. I mean, I couldn't imagine that, right? And students want to interact and receive feedback from their mistakes, different from the face-to-face. On face-to-face, your students do, sorry, they don't need to have, don't tell me my mistakes, okay? They're normally like that, right? So in the online, yes, they love to have, did I do it right? Am I correct? What was wrong? So they would like to have, they would like to see their feedbacks, okay? And also in online, you have to take into consideration interaction patterns. I mean, it's quite difficult in all the platforms. I mean, just a few platforms, you can have interactions with the same students, but the interaction patterns changes a lot. So you have to take that into consideration, okay? So now let's work with elements of the lesson planning. But before we continue, let me check only some of your questions. Sorry. Oops. Hold on. Check. Let me check because I want to see your questions. Oh, apparently I cannot see your questions right away. But in a moment, yes. Can you help me to read them, Abel? Because I have problems like reading and checking my presentation.
Don't worry. Anonymous says, can I use Mentimeter like a quiz or just like a survey?
In both. You can use it in both and in another stages also.
Very good. Teacher Emmy from Cancun says, what is the main content for a good lesson plan that covers everything without a lot of information in only 50 minutes? So the question will be summarizing what content do you recommend for a 50 minutes lesson plan?
We will see that in a moment. You will see the resources that you can check on. So you can have like take a look on this website where you can like have more information from the, like a lesson planning, right? Because we have like tons of information.
All right. Giovanni Gutierrez says, how can I get my students to participate more in speech? I guess he means speaking as well, no? How can I get my students to participate more in speaking?
We will see that in with certain apps that we have. So we have like certain apps that we can apps or platforms where you can like let your students speak. Also through videos, through recording with their own devices. So you can like, for example, ask your students like as final project, like they have to explain, I don't know, their for example, they have to summarize the reading. So they have to tell you like their conclusions about the text, so they can record their own voices. So there are like different ways to approach those skills.
All right. Elisa asks, how long could you recommend one online class should be extended in teens? I guess she refers to the extension of an online class for teenagers.
Teenagers. My recommendation is like not going like an activity that it takes them like more than 30 minutes, like 40 minutes maximum, okay? I mean, there are like some students that they like more and more and more activities, but normally it's like 30 minutes is like the tops, okay? Like 20, 25 minutes like spending on the activity, it's fine.
Very good, thank you. Iris, she says, is it a good idea that students dance or watch videos or other activities during the online classes? Maybe because you referred about as total physical response mixed with technology. So she says, if it is a good idea, make him dance.
Yes, obviously. For example, my one of my daughters, she's taking ah, I forgot the name. It's like Hawaiian dance, like classes. So now with the distance, the teacher is providing free classes online. So I helped her to work with Zoom. So now she is like giving that, giving classes with dancing. So she's like showing the movements and the songs, and you can see all the girls like dancing, and so it's really really cool. I mean, there is no limit with online. I mean, believe me, but you have to be very creative.
We have a very interesting question from Sonia in Ecuador. You mentioned about 3 steps, the pre-class, during class, and after class. She
Yes.
asks, if we skip one of those steps, is it still a lesson plan?
Yes, but remember there has to be a rationale for that, right? Like, I mean, you have to like take one out, but it's going to like affect in a way. Okay, you have to think about, for example, the after class. Maybe you can skip that, right? I mean, you present the activities, and they do the activities. They send you the final project, and that's it. I mean, you can skip like the reflection probably. But for example, if you skip like the before class, it could be like I'm not saying that it's not a lesson plan. I'm not saying it's not a class. But what I'm saying is that it's going to take a little bit more effort, especially for your students. I mean, you have to think about, like having that empathy and think about how do you deal with that as a student. Okay. Okay.
All
Can
right.
Yes.
Do you want one more or?
No, let me continue so we can read the more questions in a moment.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Abel. Okay, so the elements that you have to take into consideration always is as uh, while you're like working online. So are your objectives, the resources. Okay, so take it, that one is the most well, all of them are important, but resources are really really important. Okay, and remember, resources, you can buy the resources, you can use resources from another place, you can recycle resources, but take that into consideration, right? So that they are really important. The background knowledge, okay, you have to think about the prior knowledge that they have in order to answer or work with some classes online. Also, like I said before, instructions are really important because they have to be clear and simple, okay? Like try to be like as simple as that. No matter if their parents are helping. For example, nowadays, like kindergarten, you can work. I will let you know how can you do it. But in kindergarten, you can work online. And you said, well, their parents are going to help. Yes, but sometimes their parents are not technological. Okay, so technological. So think about that. Okay, so probably like give instructions are as much as simpler as you can, and also try to use like images. I mean, it's really helpful, even in face-to-face classes. You have to take into consideration student practice. Okay, so in each stage you have to have like practicing for your students, the closure of the lesson, and how they are going to demonstrate of the learning. Okay, how do you assess your students? So are they going to provide something? Because remember, uh, you need evidences that you are working and your students are working, especially nowadays with this pandemic, so that we can have like present with our authorities that we're working. with our students. Okay, so now after the elements, sorry, remember about the resources. These ones is really, I mean, this is the most common that we have. You can find more, but this one is like the most common, right? Like first one is videos. I mean, I will show you like some sources are where you can find videos. So use videos, use listenings. Okay, and the videos and listenings, you can create your own ones, but if you know that you're not like really good with materials, especially online, so you can find like a short video from YouTube and try to check how can you adapt this one into the curriculum and how can you interact with your students, right? Like discussions, questions about it, etc. Okay. And the listening's the same, okay? You can record your own voices, or you can find a lot of audios from on the internet. I will show you some of them, so the sources. But listenings are really so you can have two skills at the moment, right? Working with the listening and working with the visual thing. Okay. Now you have the worksheets. Now, when you work with worksheets, I suggest you to use uh, when you upload documents on a platform, try to use try to think about two aspects. If your students are going to check those worksheets in their cell phones, probably it's good to use images. But uh, what I use the most is PDF documents. Try not to use Word documents, okay? Why? Because students can change the questions, so they can play like, no, when I print the worksheet, in my printer I have problems, and I just saw 4 questions, and you have like 6 questions. So like the same tricks that you have with your students on face-to-face classes, different but kind of same tricks you can face on the online classes, right? Believe me. So you have to take that into consideration. And readings, you have to, there's like plenty of sources where you can find this one. I will show you in a moment. So you can find readings. On from the readings, for example, you're doing a reading class. So before the reading, probably I present the vocabulary. I ask them in a survey, what do they know about the Niagara Falls, for example, okay? So I introduced in a way the idea, so in the pre-skill. So while they're doing the activity, they're on the readings, so they have to read, and with the worksheets, I can work with the post reading activity. So it's the same, like the pre, the while, and the post activity. It is the same with the online classes. I mean, it's not so different. But the idea is how can you present them, right? Like how can you put it on the platform? You will see it in a moment. And quizzes, okay? So in the quizzes could be as an assessment or could be on during the lesson, okay? So during the lesson, I'm checking about I don't know, like something about science. So I want to check if my students could notice what are the let me see, the elements or the chemicals that they have in the reading, or if they could have the main idea of the text, etc., etc. Okay, or in mathematics, I mean, if they could understand how can do like work with the square root or etc. Okay, or if you're working on language, or like if they really identify the differences between simple present and present continuous. Okay, so these ones are the resources. So the most common that that we work with. So you can like the benefit of this one is like, for example, if you create a quiz, the quiz stays there. So for example, I recycle a lot of material. I mean, when I was teaching, like at the beginning, I create tons of materials, but nowadays I don't do it. I mean, the majority of the time, when I have like new groups of students or new classes. For example, in my school, for example, I have tons of materials, so I recycle the materials. So oh, I have this quiz. Oh, I have this worksheet. So it's a benefit. I mean, you don't have to download anything. You don't have to print anything. I mean, it's better. It's better for our planet. Okay, now, now from these resources, we're going to check about the sources. Okay, in this one, teachers, please, as I don't have like enough time to explain all of them and go to these websites in front of the presentation, I would like you to have like like taking a picture or take a screenshot and check those websites are really helpful. For example, the first one, you can have like tons of materials, and you have worksheets, and you have activities with your students. Enough to class, the same. You have a lot of resources. You have a lot of materials that you can work with. I mean, nowadays I don't use materials from other teachers. At the beginning, yes, I did, just to take ideas. I mean, like to have like, oh, okay, he do it like that, right? But when I'm lesson planning, I mean, I never use lesson plans from another teacher. I try to create my own lesson plans because I know my students. So at the beginning, yes, if you're working online, yes, I suggest you to go those websites, take ideas, but in the meantime, I mean, as long as you have like enough material, you won't need these ones, right? Breaking in news in English, it's really a good one. You can find a lot of materials also as well. Film English is really a cool website where you can find videos where you can use in order to teach, right? But you can use them, the ones that are in YouTube, but these ones are like really specific, especially if you're teaching English, right? But if you're teaching science or another subject, YouTube it's great. You have Fluent2, you have Peachy Publications. It's really one of my mentors because he has been working online like for years. I don't know how many years. I have the chance to met him in Mexico City. So this guy is great. I mean, he has tons of materials, ideas, sources, and if you register in that website, sometimes you have discounts. Like for example, like 3 years ago, I just bought a book that he creates like from resources from the internet, and the normal price was $25, and it cost me $1. So sometimes he has like several offers. So it's really cool. I mean, for like $1, you can have like lesson plans and ideas or materials. So Peachy Publications, I recommend you to check on that website. Teachers pay teachers. The only problem is that you have to pay. All of the materials are like you have to pay, and the prices are not so quite cheap. Especially nowadays that, for example, in Mexico, that the dollar and the Mexican peso, we have like uh, a difference on the currency exchange. But I don't know if in another countries, if you have like no problems with the currency exchange, Teachers Pay Teachers, it's a really cool website where you can find a lot of materials. And one of the websites that I began working with, like 6 years ago, was like News in Levels. I really suggested to you check this one because you can find materials that they are according, especially if you're teaching English, according to their levels. Okay, so for example, if you have an A1 students, you have the one reading. Then you say, I have an A2. So the same story with more words and vocabulary. And I have like a B1, so it's the same story, but it's like more structured. So it's really cool. And also I like it because they have videos and audios from the same stories. So you can download them and you can integrate them on your platform that you're working with. We're gonna work on that. Okay. So take a look on this one. Take a screenshot. Take a picture, please. So it's really helpful. Okay, so let me go with the next one. So, hold on. Technology. Okay, now we're gonna work on. Let me check. Let me check. I can see the questions line. I create my worksheets using online resources like forms of Office 365 while teaching online, as you said. We can also upload PDF documents for our students to work with them. Yes, Claudia. Yes, I agree with you. I mean, I never use Word documents. I try to use PDF. I mean, why? Because in that case, they cannot change, and also I can print my name. So, for plagiarism. Can we give instructions in Spanish because of many of them? Yes, yes. When you're working online, depends on the level. Okay, obviously. Uh, for example, if you have like high advanced students, no. I mean, everything is in English. But if you're working with like, for example, elementary, or if you're interacting with your with their parents, use Spanish. Okay. You can use like sometimes what I use, for example, in my blog, I use English and Spanish. So if they want to like have the challenge to read in English, they do it. So I use both, but in some cases it's okay. It's fine to have the instructions in Spanish. I will show you in a moment. Good presentation, teacher. Thank you. From Ecuador. Great. Nefty. I think another one is top 10 is ICL Collective. Yes, it is not only has worksheet, but all of PowerPoint video lessons. Thank you, Nefty. I will check this one. I also use interactive games, and they send me the picture of the score they got. Perfect. Yes. I mean, nowadays with the devices, remember that you were with me with the using of on smartphones. I mean, nowadays taking screenshots is like the best evidence. I mean, you don't need anything else, right? Very good. Google Classroom is an excellent tool. Yes, we're gonna see that in a moment. Oh, Adel, thank you for putting all the links. Yes, it is advisable to change the class plan during the class according to the requirements arising during the session. Okay, remember, we have to think about if you're working synchronous, yes, like in this moment. I mean, if I see that something is not working, yes, you can stop and change something, okay? But when you're working asynchronous, it's impossible. I mean, you cannot change nothing unless it happens a lot that your students, like there are some students that really they love technology, and they love to like teacher, question number 5, it's incorrect, and I check, oh, I made a mistake. So you can correct some of the mistakes that you have. It happens a lot. In elementary school, it's recommended that someone else prepare the material elementary class online. You can ask for someone to help you out. I mean, it's not that bad, Roberto. I mean, if you feel that you're not well prepared for that, yes, you can do that at the beginning. But I suggest you to like go into. I mean, don't be afraid to have like mistakes. I mean, we all do. Janet, how do you work with students with specific needs or accommodations? I don't know what it means with accommodations, but what you're talking about. But for specific needs, in this case, I try to work. Sorry. Um, I try to work with, normally, I try to work with parents. I mean, this is the only way. I mean, try to work with their parents, and their parents, they have to be the link between. I mean, you have to work you, the student, and the parents. I mean, there's no other way. It depends on the special needs, but it's I suggest you to like have interaction with the parents. I mean, because it's not so easy. And in my experience, for example, with specific needs, special needs, I mean, they really finish their all activities. I I just had like one or two students that they have special needs that they didn't finish their assignments, but it was because of the parents' involvement. I mean, if they don't If they are not involved with the children, I mean, it's kind of difficult to work with. I mean, some of them they're like really independent, but some of them they need their parents and you need their permission. So yes, you need that. How can I make my students to be less scared of sharing ideas or speaking? Working online. Why? Because in the most, we will see the majority of the platforms, they don't interact between students. I mean, there are like just a few platforms where students have the chance to interact. But for example, in a video call, it's kind of difficult, but only at the beginning. But as they interact only students with you, I mean, they are like really open to speak. I mean, I have seen students that they amaze me. I mean, I had one, even I had an evaluation and the Cambridge evaluation. So I had a student, she was like really shy, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna fail with my class. And she has to record her in a video, like presenting the weather, like she was, you know, like the weather uh, forecast. I don't know, like what's the name of these guys? And she was like, wow, I mean, like really open and really fluent. And I was like, what? I mean, I really, I mean, I have to, I remember I had to like call her parents in order like encourage them and help her in order to take like classes, like, you know, like locución and everything, you know, communication, because she was really, really good at it. Okay, so let me work with, do I have to be specific writing the topics on my planning? Yes, you have to be really, really specific. And remember, don't think about your lesson planning for your coordinators. Don't think about your lesson planning for the authorities or for the principal or for, I mean, think about your lesson planning for you. Okay, remember, you told me it's my guide. So don't think about other teachers. Think about what is good and what is best for you. Okay. So let me continue with the presentation. Sorry. So we have to think about the SMART goals. Okay. When you set the goals, you have, I don't know if you remember this one from the last presentation. So you have to work with the SMART goals. So you have to be very specific. They have to measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Okay. So specific says states exactly what you want to accomplish, okay? What is the idea that you want, okay? You have to measure them, and I mean, how can I have an evidence of the activity, okay? Achievable, I mean, they make your goal reasonable. I mean, some of the time, I mean, you go beyond. It happens to me at the beginning. I mean, my expectations were like, whew, really high. So no, when I see my students were like I told you, like 5% of my students were like doing the activities, I have to like go down, right? Like make them like a little bit easier, right? Realistic, right? Set a goal that is relevant to your life, okay? So they have to be like something that they are connected with, okay? For example, you have, for example, in public, you have like you have to write a letter, a complaint letter. But let's face it, I mean, who writes letters in this moment, right? So what I changed from writing a letter is like I changed it to writing an email. So it's kind of like a little bit related with them. I mean, nowadays they don't write emails neither, but it's more like in touch with them, right? So it's more realistic with them. So instead of like complaining about the hospital services, I try to like let them to like complain about a TV that you bought and it was like broken. So it was more realistic for them, right? And timely, right? Give yourself time, but set a deadline, okay? You have to set a deadline, okay? And you have to check, okay, this one they take 5 minutes, and then this one 10 minutes, and this one, and they need to go to the restroom. So probably like you have to set like a deadline. Like I honestly give like a lot of time for them, but I set a time. For example, I said this one is the work for the week, so they have a week, the whole week, and the whole time I'm trying to like, are you doing this one? Are you working with this one? So I try to keep track on them. Okay, so for example, I have one example of a goal, but you can see the colors, right? For example, it says by the end of the lesson, students will be able to produce a video describing recommendations of places they want to visit in the next vacation. Okay, so so the idea is, for example, you can see all the colors where you can see the elements. For example, in this case, for example, by the end of the lesson is my time. Obviously, I say by the end of the lesson, but this one I can be like more specific, right? By Sunday, I don't know, by this Sunday at 10 p.m., students will be able, so I be able is my achievable, to produce or to create. In this one, remember to use taxonomy verbs and Marzano verbs. I recommend you to take a look in these ones. A video is my measurable thing, right? And recommendations of places they want to visit is the realistic thing, right? Something that is connected with them. Okay, so you see the SMART goals. It's really important, right? Like when are they going to do it? How are they going to do it? What are they going to do it? And why are they going to do this one? Okay, you have to think about all these aspects of your lesson plan. Okay, let me continue. So let me check if you have questions about it. Oh, I think it get disconnected again. Okay, hold on. Let me check if I can see your questions. Again, it's not working. Hold on. Okay, in a moment I can answer your questions with the help of Abel. So let me continue. Okay, now we're going to work. I'm not going to explain you these ones, but take a look on these ones, these approaches. Okay, I suggest you to take a look on these three ones. I mean, they are really old, but you see, nowadays that especially the ones that we are working with online classes, we work. I remember there was a teacher that I had in during my BA. His name is Norberto. He was my or one of my teachers at the career, and he told me one day there is nothing new under the sun, right? I mean, you will see that the same ideas recycle and recycle. I mean, they just create some changes, but it's the same. At the end, it's the same idea, the same approaches, the same methodology. I mean, there is nothing new under the sun. Even we're working with technology, we work with old ideas, but this is because we have like some base, right? So I suggest you to take a look on these ones. I'm not going to explain you this one because it's like a whole semester for each one. But we have three approaches. So the first one is task-based learning, TBL. This one is really helpful. When you understand how they work with the TBL, you will see how can you work with online classes. For example, like creating the task, the presentation, and the activities, and then you go back, right? The next one is a little bit new. It's project-based learning. It's similar to the TBL, but this one is based instead of tasks. This one is based on a project. Okay, you have a project at the end. And the last one is Suggestopedia. Okay, I know Suggestopedia. Once you read it, you have the chance to read it. Suggestopedia, it's about creating the classroom and the environment. I mean, it was a psychologist who created this one. But Suggestopedia also, if you reflect, because I have seen this one, especially when I was working at the University of Guadalajara, we created an environment for the students. So the students have like stories and they follow a character and he has to go to a parties. So we have to create all the stories, all the readings, all the exercise through this one. So Suggestopedia, I suggest you to take a look at this one. So because I mean it is an old approach. I know it's like about classroom, but nowadays that we're working on online, So you have to create an environment on your classes, right? So I will give you like some recommendations later on about this one with the Suggestipedia. Okay, so Abel, I don't know if there are like some questions.
Yes, we had several questions, but let me get through them because it's been, I mean, we have a lot of comments and recommendations. What about talking time? Anonymous asks, how can I reduce teacher talking time and increase student talking time on online classes?
Okay, well, there is no talking time, right? I mean, like everything is on online, it's reading. But if you're talking about online, for example, in this case that I'm presenting, like in a synchronous um, online learning, for example, with through video calls. At the beginning, yes, it's a lot of teacher talking time because they're like not used to use video conferences. But as soon as they're get into this one, I mean, you have to reduce your teacher talking time. In the asynchronous, there is no teacher talking time. I mean, there is information, they can read it and they can answer the activities. But in the synchronous activities, as I told you before, yes, at the beginning, it's a lot of teacher talking time is necessary. But as soon as they understand the rules of and the problems and the way they can interact with video conferences, believe me, they love to. So you don't have to talk a lot, right? Just like throw the ball and they work with that, right?
There, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes, Adel.
We have another question. It says, what's your opinion about to use YouTube with small kids? Because YouTube is not an educational platform and it has bad publicity.
Yes, I mean, nowadays I love YouTube. What I suggest you to use is like YouTube Kids. For example, that you're working with, especially with elementary and kindergarten students, I suggest you to use YouTube Kids. And once you call, I mean, you're watching videos, try to check the video that it's really, I mean, it has like a connection. And what I love from YouTube Kids is that the publicity that appears on the YouTube videos, it's related with them. I mean, it's about publicity about toys and candies. I mean, there is no surprise. Like because like nowadays, I have seen videos. I'm sorry, commercials on YouTube that they are like kind of like adults information, and yes, I mean, in this case, I will take that into consideration. For especially, I would recommend like download the video, try to choose short videos, try to do that video and teach that video. I mean, like, how can I watch? What I do is like I watch the video like several times, and then I try to create the questions or the ideas of how can I get information from that video in order to let my students like reflect without watching the video. Okay, like before the watching the video, what do you know about this one? Okay, what do you know about that topic? So my students get like the information. So what I do is like activate the prior knowledge. So I create the questions. As soon as they answer those questions, I said, okay, as soon as you finish this one, now you can watch the video. And after they watch the video, they have the assessment. And after they have the, and after they have the students practice, I work on the assessment. Okay, so like what I do. I mean, if it's necessary to work with something or only with the quizzes, it's okay. There is another one. Is there another
This
one?
is this is a very interesting one because I read some comments and probably you did as well that a lot of teachers are having trouble with Zoom. And most of the questions we have here are about large classes. So what
Okay.
do you think is the best platform to work with groups of 30 kids, more or less?
Okay. Um. Well, I always love to work with Zoom because with Zoom you don't need to install anything. I mean, you also create the schedules for your students. And also I think even with the freer versions, you can have like some ideas. What I recommend you to do is um, maybe if the school where you work with provide you with the premium service, what I do is I have two videos. So I have the face-to-face here with Zoom, and I have the broadcasting with YouTube. So at the same time, for example, if my students cannot access through Zoom or through another platform, they can see the videos on YouTube. But the only thing is that the interaction is kind of it's going to be a little bit different. They can comment on the video, like on the comments on the video, or you can have like interaction through WhatsApp or another Telegram or another platform where you can have like contact. Written contact. So yes, you can have. Probably we can suggest like about like doing a webinar about Zoom and another platforms for these ones. Is there another one? Sorry.
We have several ones, but I'm pretty sure you have very good suggestions on the next slides, and we have
Okay.
only 14 minutes. What do you
Okay.
think if we continue and then we leave some questions till the end?
Yes, I agree with you. Thank you, Abel.
Thank you.
Okay, let's continue because we're gonna see a lot of sources and resources that they are gonna really be great for you. So the next one is hold on, platforms. Okay, when you're working with platforms, I suggest you to use these ones. Uh, and obviously, the ones that I recommend first is the University of Dayton. Okay, the UDP Global. So you will see some slides with this one. I really suggest this one because if you're working with us, working with our books, you have, according to your services that you requested, you can have access to through with our platforms. And remember, you can have like interactions with your students, interactions with the parents. You can have interactions with people from the school that you're working with. You have not you have you don't have to worry. I'm sorry. You don't have to worry about creating your materials because they're all there. You will see. I will show you some slides. They're really perfect. They have everything. So we have everything. So if you're not working right now with a University of Dayton or SM, please contact Adele or our people from marketing so they can give you a tour of what we have. So we really have tons of materials. For example, you have lesson planning, activities, resources. You have everything, so you don't have to create anything. So I really like this one. I will show you some slides about it. We have Class Dojo. Okay, this one has changed a lot. When the first time that I knew about Class Dojo, it was only about classroom management. It's about your class, the activities on your class, and that's it. But nowadays, Class Dojo has changed a lot. Now, for example, in one of the kindergarten where my daughters are studying, we have interaction nowadays with this pandemic. We're working with Class Dojo, so the teachers send the activities. We do the activities with our daughters, and we take pictures, videos, and I post it on the Class Dojo. And what I like from Class Dojo is that the interaction is really at the moment. If the parents, as a parent, if I have a question, I ask my question through the app of Class Dojo, so it's really interactive. As a teacher, also you can interact with your students at the moment. Especially if you're working with kids that they are like elementary or kindergarten, I suggest you to use the UDP and Class Dojo. And if you're working with students from secondary and high school or university, some of you are working with, I suggest you to use Edmodo and Google Classroom. They're really fantastic. In Edmodo, this is one of I work with now, right now. Edmodo has like a lot of opportunities. Also, you can have an app where you can have a track with your students. So, for example, if one of my students finish their assignment, I can have a notification on my app. If I want to change something on the platform, I can change it through my app. So I don't need to go to my computer. So it's really fantastic. It has some limitations, like I mean, like some of the teachers says, like what application or what technology can I use to cover the whole class? It's impossible. I mean, nowadays, like you have to collect from another sources. Well, except for the University of Dayton, that we have everything. But in the other ones, you have to create the materials. I mean, you have to upload the videos, but it's not so difficult. I mean, there are like plenty of tutorials on this one. The last one is Google Classroom. The first time that I checked this one, it was like kind of limited, but nowadays it's really fantastic. I mean, I really suggest you to Google it. Um, and Google Classroom has changed a lot. I mean, you have tons of activities. You can have track with your students. You can have connection with the parents. You can upload quizzes, grades. I mean, you have tons of materials with this one. It has some limitations. For example, I prefer Edmodo, but Google Classroom is really cool. What I like from Google Classroom is as soon as you have the G Suite, yes, G Suite. I mean, as soon as you have the thing that I like from Google is that you have all the sources. I mean, you have Google Drive, Google Documents, Google Slides. I mean, you have everything. So you don't have to like for example, in Edmodo, I have to work with another like Word or another sources. But in Google Classroom, I have almost everything. What I noticed is that the limitations on the quizzes. For example, if I want to create quizzes on Edmodo, I can create like more tailored or more what is the name, more relevant and more like um, adapt with my students. I mean, like this is more like for my students. And in Google Classroom, the limitations are kind of like you can see that on the quizzes, I don't like the the possibilities with the quizzes. And the other part, for example, with Class Dojo and with us in UDP Global, you have more. I mean, you have the activities there, so you don't have to create them. You just select the questions and the assignments that you would like to have. So these ones are the ones that I recommend you. For example, I show you like some slides. For example, in this case, you can say the Trainers Plus 2. For example, you can see, for example, in this part, in this slide, I take a picture of this one. It's a screenshot. So, for example, you have the Unity activities, and you can see, for example, that you can assign them to your classes. So you have all the materials there, and you can really, I mean, integrate with your students. I mean, really, we have everything there. So, I mean, you don't have to create materials, you don't have to create quizzes, you don't have to create resources. I mean, it's everything there. So the only problem is that you have no problem, but the only thing is that you have to invest on time, okay? So you have to create the groups, so you have to create the connections with your students, the code so the parents can have their involvement, etc., okay? So this one, and the second one is one activity that we have in the UDP, for example, for kindergarten. So these are the kind of activities that you can see on our platform. So it's really cool. I mean, you can see images, words. They have like sounds when they have the word correctly. You can hear that it was correct. If they get a wrong answer, it has a specific sound, so students are like, oh, I failed, like it's really interactive. And obviously this one is for elementary. So if you're working with elementary and kindergarten, highly suggest you to work with us, obviously with our material. If you're working with secondary and high school, yes, obviously you can also do this one because we have books for those levels. But if you would like to explore or invent, well, you can have other resources. In Class Dojo, that I told you, like you can interact as a teacher, as a parent, as a student, or as a school leader, right? So your coordinator can have access, and he or she can keep track on on the activities that you're working with your students. Okay, and also you can get involved with the parents. I know it's difficult. I know it's the same in the classes, right? Like the only parents that are involved are the ones that have like higher grades. So, but don't hesitate. Don't let you these issues like going down. Like, oh, uh, let's stop this one. No, no. Try to like continue, right? Um, Edmodo, this one is one of my some of my classes that I have. For example, I have my private classes. I have business classes, the Canada. So I have one of my some. I had some groups that they travel to Canada, so they would like to learn like how can I travel to the airport, how can I take the bus, how can I take the train, how can I take a taxi, how can I pay, the restaurants, activities. So I create everything. So the environment, activities, etc. For example, you can see one of my classes. For example, I always pin one of the activities so they see the activities of the week. So what is the first activity that they have to do, the second, the third one, the fourth one, etc. So they have like several activities that they have to complete. So I keep record on this one. I have interaction with my students. We have like a special chat. It's not quite fast because sometimes like they send you a message and it takes like some hours to receive the the message, but especially nowadays because everyone is using online platforms probably. And the last one, well, I didn't put you Google Classroom, but you can see them. Okay, the next one, the last one, but not the least, we have other resources. Okay, so these resources, I suggest you to like take a look on these ones. Okay, so these ones are really helpful nowadays, and according to some tech magazines, they're like the one of the top right now in the 2020. So is No Hands Up. It's an application where you can have interaction with your students. I suggest you to like take a screenshot or take a picture. Plickers is really cool. I mean, you can have interaction with your students. They can really have answer some questions. You can have this one's more like in the class, but you can work online activities as well. Padlet, it's really fantastic. You can interact. You can interact. For example, in this Padlet, you can have your students interact in groups, but it's only reading. Socrative, it's really cool. You can create quizzes, exams, assessments, everything. Nearpod is another one. It's really new. It's really cool. I have seen this one like a couple of months ago. It's really cool. You can create many. It's like a more like a platform. Edpuzzle, it's really good source where you can find a lot of materials and you can create materials as well. You have Classcraft and obviously the um, the most common Minecraft education. I don't know if you have seen it. It's really fantastic. The only thing is that you have to pay, but you can check authorities. I think they have like some kind of scholarships. And I put Blogger. I mean, Blogger is not the most important right now, but I suggested you use blogs. I mean, I use blogs to have interactions. For example, if I mean the same activities that they can see in the platform, the same activities that they can see on the blog. So they don't have any. For example, let's imagine that Edmodo has a problem. So I don't have any problem because I have my blog. So on the blog they have all the information there. So they can watch the video, they can download the PDF document. I mean, blogs are really easy to interact. I mean, I suggest you to take a look on any blog, but I suggest to use Blogger because it's from Google and they have access to the whole suite. So these ones are the last ones. So any comments?
Okay, Abraham, we have a lot of comments, a lot of
Yes.
people saying congratulations and thank you. Some questions were already answered. I was posting some of your questions and they were already answered. We just running out of time, so we wouldn't have like to answer more questions.
Okay.
But you have information always on UDP social nets about how to contact us, as well our staff in Mexico, if you want to have more information about this. So let me share my screen. You can see what's going to happen next week, because next week we are going to work on more workshops. So Abraham, don't go. We are going to talk a little bit about what's happening next week.
Yes.
So quickly, those are the workshops we are going to have for next week. We are going to continue with online trendy topics, because on Monday we're going to talk about e-games. It's going to be the same time. So because you requested, we won't make the webinar shorter. So thank you for your preferences. We are going to keep the format for 90 minutes because there's been a lot of response, a lot of positive reactions to the webinar. So we're going to keep the same time from 12:30 Mexico time to 2 o'clock. So it's going to be 90 minutes webinar starting Monday with e-games, on Tuesday effective classroom management, on the 29th mixability classes, and on Thursday, April the 30th, we have online cooperative learning. So as you can see, we have prepared very interesting topics for you as usual, because we really like you to be here and continue learning with us. So Abraham, one more time, your final comments before we leave. Your microphone is mute, Abraham.
Sorry. Thank you for being here. I appreciate the opportunity also with Abdel and our authorities. And I suggest you to continue. I mean, take a look on those webinars. I mean, it's a really, how can I say, exhaustive effort that we're doing, but we're doing for our teachers because we care, right? Remember, sharing is caring. So we're sharing our expertise or knowledge, but the idea is to have like a community. And I love to be here, and I hope you enjoy and continue looking. I mean, Google it.
That's right. Continue working on your professional development. Thank you for all the suggestions you gave us. And well, for the rest of you, remember that tomorrow we don't have workshop, so I will see you till Monday. Have a nice weekend, everyone. Have a nice afternoon or evening. Please be safe and we keep in touch. Bye-bye.
All right.